Guys, we're in Caesarea.
We escaped.
We have one more day. We leave tomorrow. Well, most of us leave tomorrow. And so we escaped and we rented a car. The park is apparently open, though it looks closed. But it's open and there's no tourists in the country, so it's gonna be empty, just locals and us. We don't know if we can get in yet. We'll see what happens. I think they think we're American tourists who aren't supposed to be here right now. All right, peeps, we made it into the park, Caesarea Maritima. Look at this foot. So this is where Herod built his very famous seaport. It was not a natural harbor. He built this place and there is a lot of significant history here. So I'll tell you a little bit more about it once we get inside.
So in 22 BC, Herod began construction on this massive deep sea harbor, and he named it in honor of the Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus. The city included a Roman-style theater, a temple to Augustus, Herod's palace, Roman bathhouses, and much, much more. And when Judea became a Roman province in 6 AD, Caesarea Maritima replaced Jerusalem as its civilian and military capital. It then became the official residence of Roman procurators, such as Antonius Felix and Prefect Pontius Pilate.
Okay, so right here, where I just came from, this is where Herod's palace used to be. It goes out into the water. Herod's engineers made a cement that could still work underwater, and that was cutting edge at the time. And so his palace would have been beautiful, stretching out into the water. Herod was, of course, a builder who wanted to always defy nature. He built an amazing palace, Masada, that had a lush garden on it in the desert. He made the Jerusalem temple, elevating it higher than it had ever been. He made a palace here out on the sea. Many, many more things. Herod was truly one of the greatest builders of his time. Okay, so now we are walking in the Hippodrome, I believe it's called, where they used to have horse races. You can kind of see the shape of it. It's very long, oval-like shape. But the horses ran around. Just came from the palace and then from Herod's theater. And I'm gonna head up to some more archaeological remains now. The 2020 chariot race begins in 3, 2, 1, go! As with any archaeological site, there are a lot of layers of history and time periods and people groups represented. Right now, I'm in the administrative center of Herod's Caesarea. There's lots of mosaics, beautiful arches and pillars. There's a bathhouse area, because Herod couldn't build anything without having a Roman bathhouse included. There's part of a site that's from a medieval city that was here. We have the Byzantines here. So I'm gonna keep exploring and see what happens. Over there! Yeah, get up there. We made it up! We made it! We're on top of an ancient Roman aqueduct. Found Corona. Yeah. Do you want some Corona? Here. You're welcome. So I wanted to spend at least a little bit of time reflecting on my semester here in Israel because it's coming to a close. When I woke up this morning, I had no idea that I'd be here in Caesarea Maritima. And I can't think of a better place to reflect on this time in Israel before I head back home, because this is the place, quite literally, where the gospel went out from. As I was talking about before, King Herod the Great was the one who built this port and made it famous. It was an incredibly important gateway into the Roman world. Herod wanted to build something that bridged his kingdom to the Roman world, which he loved so much. And so actually there used to be a huge temple to Augustine here. So when you were sailing up to the port of Caesarea Maritima, you would see, if you were a Roman, you would feel like you were coming home because you would see this temple that was built in the same architectural style as you're used to. It's to your Caesar, and it was just this beautiful Roman city on the coast that brought in ideas and trade and influence and Hellenization. So all that to say, we get to the time of Paul, who was held prisoner here. Acts tells us the story of how he was taken here, held prisoner, and eventually sails to Rome from this port. So it's amazing to think that this place was built for the opposite. It was built in the shadow of Rome, for Rome, in the style of Rome, to bring in Roman ideas, and yet we have Paul using it to bring the gospel outward, to bring it out into the greater world, because that's what this represented. This was the way to the rest of the world, the rest of the known world at the time. The ancient Israelites were not seafaring people. The ocean represented chaos. And so you have Paul and many other apostles and followers of Jesus, I'm sure, leaving from this port, facing the chaos, braving the chaos and the unknown world, because they have something really important to say. They have a story like no other. And so with this as our backdrop, I would get a little closer, but the wind would be insane, so you wouldn't be able to hear me. I just wanted to share a closing thought to my time here. I had one question on an exam that really got me thinking, because it basically said, imagine that you're going home and some people come up to you and ask, what's the point of studying the geography of the land of the Bible? Because that's what I spent a lot of time here doing. The history, the context, the culture, and especially the geography. And so the question posed, why? How would you explain its importance? Is it important? And while there is a plethora of reasons I could give about why the geography of the Bible matters, for our reading of it, for our understanding of it, one thing really stuck out to me. And to share that, I need to take you back in time a little bit. Because if you've been watching my vlogs, you know that I grew up on a ship in Africa. And if you haven't been watching my vlog, I grew up on a ship in Africa. And I absolutely adored my childhood, wouldn't change it for the world, loved my ship, knew the geography of my ship very well. But when it came to the world outside of that ship, I honestly never saw geography as that important because I moved so often. You know, every couple months or every year, it was a new port, new people, new cultures, new roads to learn, new places to explore. And I loved exploring, but because nothing was ever really permanent in that way, I never took the time to get to know road names and street names and to really know how to get around without a map. And even maps, I'm very bad at reading maps, which has made this class very challenging in a good way. But all that to say, while I loved my childhood and would not change the adventure for anything, I have been learning recently another value in life, especially during my time in Seattle, which is being still, getting to know one place and one community. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this idea that when you move into a town, or if you move into a neighborhood or a city or a community, it doesn't really become home until you get to know it. When you're home, you're in a place where you don't get lost. You know which street will get you to the grocery store faster. You know that one off-the-road beaten trail that takes you to your most favorite place to watch the sunset. You know where the best parks are, the best views are, where your friends live and how to get there. And even as you're talking to friends, maybe using language like, wow, I've been really going through a season of valleys in my life. You're probably thinking of valleys that you know, that are familiar to you, that are from your home. Or mountain, oh, that was a mountaintop experience. You're probably thinking of a mountain you've hiked, a view you've seen. And what I feel that this place has given me as we have studied the geography of the Bible and the culture and the context that kind of goes hand in hand with that, I feel like JUC has given me the gift of coming home to the Bible, finding a home in God's story. And because of my time here with my professors in class, but also in the community that lived out what we were learning, I feel like I'm not so lost anymore. I feel like I've learned in a very literal way, yes, geographically how to navigate the land, but also in just this very spiritual and emotional way, how to navigate the world of the Bible and how to not feel so lost. Because I think we spend a lot of time in life feeling lost. Maybe it's not right now for you, maybe you just came out of a season of feeling lost, or maybe you're going into one. We're all trying to figure out who we are, what we want to do in this world, who we want to be, where we belong. Do we belong anywhere? We're searching, we're hungering. And I feel like the way JUC has taught me to study and read the Bible in its geographical context has helped me become familiar with the characters and the stories and the landscape in the same way that we create a home in a neighborhood, by getting to know the neighbors, by getting to know the streets, by wanting to know what the town stands for, what matters to us as a community, where are we going, what are our goals, to be able to get to do that in God's story, to find myself in God's story, has been a remarkable experience. Because ultimately, I don't think that we can care about the story of God in a manner that inspires us, like Paul, to get into boats and sail across the known world to spread this story, unless you know you are a part of it. And I think it's that connection, that identifying with the story, that we often miss. And then, while the Bible is fascinating on its own, some fun stories in there, some crazy stories in there, and some good feel-good moments, and while that's all true, it's not going to be enough to transform our lives, to be more powerful and more invasive in the best way possible, and all-consuming than all of the other things that take up our time. So quickly the Bible becomes categorized, becomes one element of our life in the same way that sports and school and our favorite TV show, and our group of friends and our traveling and all these different parts that make up who we are. It kind of becomes one of those things. But the gospel is too big for that. It's exciting, it's dynamic, it's vibrant, and it is not meant to be a part of our life. It is meant to infuse everything. I mean, that's why people were so excited. That's why the disciples and the apostles were like, we have to go. We have to tell people of this way to live life, that we don't have to be afraid, that there's someone who's conquered death. And at the very bottom of the building blocks for developing a mindset like this is the geography, is the context of the land, is realizing that their story is our story. And so as I sit here and I look out at the sea and I reflect on my time on campus and on JUC and in Jerusalem, even with all of the corona craziness and quarantine and canceled trips and amazing memories and conversations and other things that came because of those canceled trips, I am excited and thankful to go out from here, to be a part of the story, to realize I'm a part of the story, that we're all a part of the story. When I was little, I always wanted to be a part of something greater. And I think we all imagine being a part of something great. Like there's a reason when we're little kids, we dress up as superheroes or princesses or dream of having like special powers, or I remember doing that when I was a kid. And yet God has already given that to us, to be a part of a community who worships God, who lives differently, who chooses love and sacrifice and forgiveness, who pushes out past our comfort zones and out into the sea to invite more people into this community. We can spend a lot of time wanting to write our stories or change our stories or be a part of something greater, but there is nothing greater than what God is already offering us. So I leave tomorrow night, and so until then, thank you for coming with me on this journey, and I hope wherever you are, you feel the excitement and the power of God's grace and strength to find yourself in His story and to go out and invite other people into that story as well. See you next time.